The deafening alarm echoed through the halls of Galactic Academy Station 7, causing Noah Grant to bolt upright from his desk, where he'd fallen asleep studying xenobiology. The flashing red emergency lights bathed his small dormitory in an ominous glow as the computerized voice repeated the same warning over and over. Containment breach in Sector 12. Predator specimen escaped. All students proceed to secure locations immediately. Noah's heart pounded in his chest as he scrambled to his feet, nearly knocking over his half-empty cup of coffee. As the only human exchange student in the prestigious Interplanetary Academy, he was used to being the odd one out, but this situation transcended species differences. Everyone feared the Nexos, the apex predator from the outer rim that the xenobiology department had brought in for study 3 days ago. "This can't be happening," Noah muttered, grabbing his communication device to check for updates. The message boards were exploding with panicked posts from students of all species. A heavy pounding at his door made him jump. "Noah, are you in there? Let me in." The familiar voice belonged to Xyrx, his Adelian roommate from the neighboring dorm. Noah quickly unlocked the door. Xyrx burst in, his 4 eyes wide with terror, the ridges on his blue skin flaring with stress indicators. "They say it's heading this way," Xyrx panted, his secondary breathing slits fluttering rapidly. "The Nexos escaped during feeding time. It killed 2 security guards and one of the professors." "What about the lockdown protocols?" Noah asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "They're trying, but the creature damaged the main control panel in Sector 12. Some of the security doors aren't responding," Xyrx said, his eyes darting nervously around the room. "Everyone knows these dormitories have the weakest security. We need to get to the emergency shelters in Sector 5. Noah grabbed his emergency pack, a standard-issue survival kit that all students were required to keep prepared. "Let's go then." As they stepped into the corridor, the chaos became immediately apparent. Students of various species were rushing in all directions, some toward the emergency shelters, others back to their rooms to barricade themselves in. The diversity that made Galactic Academy famous now manifested as a cacophony of panicked sounds, clicking, whistling, buzzing, and shouting in dozens of languages. "Move, human." A tall Viridian student shoved past Noah, nearly knocking him down. The Viridian's translucent skin pulsed with fear patterns, its 3 arms clutching personal belongings. "Stay close," Noah told Xyrx as they joined the stream of students heading toward the main junction that would lead to the emergency shelters. The crowd suddenly parted ahead of them as Professor Laxam, head of security, appeared with 2 armed guards. His tentacled face was rigid with concern. "Everyone remain calm," his voice boomed through his translator. "The situation is being contained. All students must report to their designated emergency shelters immediately. Follow your evacuation protocols." A Metheran student, recognizable by her crystalline exoskeleton, pushed forward. "Is it true the Nexos killed Professor Itril? What about the containment fields?" "Why weren't they activated?" Professor Laxam's color darkened slightly. "We are investigating all security failures. Your safety is our priority. Now move in an orderly fashion to the shelters." As the crowd continued moving, Noah felt a chill run down his spine. Something wasn't right about this evacuation. The protocol drills they had practiced directed students from his sector to use the East Corridor to reach Shelter 3, but most students were heading west. "Xyrx," Noah whispered, grabbing his friend's arm. "Why is everyone going that way?" "Our shelter is in the opposite direction." Xyrx's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of confusion. "The alert updated while you were gathering your things. Shelter 3 is compromised. We're all being directed to Shelter 1. Noah checked his comm device. Sure enough, there was an updated alert he had missed, but something about the message seemed off. The formatting was different from standard Academy communications. "I don't like this," Noah said. "It feels wrong." "What are you talking about?" Xyrx's voice rose with anxiety. "We need to go where it's safe. Think about it," Noah insisted. "If the Nexos escaped in Sector 12 and we're in Sector 8, why would they direct us through Sectors 9, 10, and 11 to reach Shelter 1? we'd be moving closer to the danger. Zyarks hesitated, his secondary breathing slits fluttering with indecision. What are you suggesting? I think someone might be deliberately herding students toward the danger, not away from it, Noah said, his mind racing through the possibilities. Remember what Professor Krell taught us about Nexos hunting patterns. They don't just hunt for food, they enjoy the chase. What if someone wants to give it prey? Before Zyarks could respond, a piercing scream echoed from the direction where most students had gone. The sound cut off abruptly, followed by several more screams and the unmistakable roar of the Nexos. That's coming from Junction 9B, Zyarks whispered, his voice trembling. Where everyone just went, Noah made a split-second decision. We need to go the other way, back to the dorms. The Nexos will be focused on the larger group. We can barricade ourselves in my room until the real security team gets this under control. Zyarks looked torn, his cultural instinct to follow authority warring with survival logic. But the evacuation order was possibly fake, Noah insisted. Come on, they turned and ran against the now empty corridor back toward the dormitory section. Noah's mind raced who would want to deliberately release the Nexos, and why direct students toward it. None of it made sense, but survival came first. As they rounded the corner to their dormitory section, they almost collided with a small group of alien students huddled in the hallway. Noah recognized Alara, a luminary with bioluminescent skin that was currently pulsing with fear patterns, and Grok, a stocky Buvian whose rocky exterior couldn't hide his obvious terror. Noah, Zyarks? Alara's melodious voice trembled. Why are you here? The emergency shelters are, we think it's a trap, Noah interrupted. Someone's deliberately directing students toward the Nexos, not away from it. Grok rumbled, stone plates shifting as he processed this information. That would explain why the alert protocols seemed irregular. My instincts told me to stay put. We need to find somewhere safe to hide, Noah said, looking around the dormitory hall, somewhere the Nexos wouldn't think to look. Our rooms have standard locks that wouldn't hold against a determined Nexos, Zyarks pointed out, his 4 eyes continually scanning the corridor. What about the maintenance tunnels? Suggested Vexel, a spindly arachnoid who had been so quiet Noah hadn't noticed him standing behind Alara. They run between the walls and floors. The access points are small and Nexos couldn't fit. But we could, Noah nodded. Good thinking, Vexel. Where's the nearest access point? End of this hall, behind the environmental control panel, Vexel replied, already moving in that direction, his 8 legs allowing him to scuttle faster than the others could walk. The small group followed, keeping close to the walls and listening for any sounds that might indicate the Nexos was nearby. Noah could feel his heart hammering in his chest. The predator was known for its stealth as much as its ferocity. They might not hear it coming until it was too late. Vexel reached the access panel and quickly removed it with practiced ease. I work maintenance shifts, he explained, noting their surprised looks. The tunnels are narrow but should accommodate all of us except perhaps Grok. The Buvian rumbled in agreement. My species is too large. I will find another hiding place. No, Noah said firmly. We stick together, there must be somewhere else. Alara's skin pulsed with a new pattern. What about the xenobotany lab? It has reinforced doors because of the hazardous specimens and it's designed to withstand containment breaches. That's in Sector 7, Zyarks noted, close enough to reach quickly but away from where the Nexos was last reported. Noah nodded. Good plan, let's go. As they moved carefully through the empty corridors, Noah couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. The Academy Station, usually bustling with activity, felt eerily abandoned, the only sounds their cautious footsteps and the distant blare of alarms. They had almost reached the junction that would lead them to Sector 7 when a wet, sliding sound from above made them freeze. Noah looked up slowly, his blood turning cold at what he saw. Clinging to the ceiling, its adaptive camouflage imperfectly matching the metallic surface, was the Nexos. Its 6 limbs splayed out like a spider's razor-sharp claws digging into the metal for purchase. Its elongated head swiveled toward them, revealing rows of needle-like teeth in a mouth that seemed too wide for its skull. Don't move. Noah whispered, knowing that the predator's visual system was primarily movement-based. But Alara's fear response was automatic. Her bioluminescence flared brightly, illuminating the corridor with pulses of panicked light. The Nexos' head snapped toward her, its mouth opening in a silent hiss. "Run." Noah shouted, pushing Alara forward as the creature dropped from the ceiling with frightening speed. They scattered, instinct overriding coordination. Noah sprinted toward the xenobotany lab, hearing the scrabble of the predator's claws on the floor behind him. A scream cut through the air. One of his companions had been caught. Noah dared a glance back, and saw Xyrx trapped beneath one of the Nexos' clawed limbs, its head descending toward his friend's throat. Without thinking, Noah grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and charged back, unleashing a cloud of suppressant directly at the predator's face. The Nexos reared back, screeching in pain and confusion as the chemical irritated its sensory organs. Noah grabbed Xyrx's arm and hauled him up. "Move," he shouted, pulling his friend along as the predator thrashed blindly behind them. They rounded the corner to see Alara holding open the door to the xenobotany lab, her skin flashing urgent patterns. Grok and Vexel were already inside. Noah and Xyrx dove through the entrance just as the Nexos recovered and charged after them, its roar vibrating the metal walls. Alara slammed the reinforced door shut, the automatic locks engaging with a reassuring series of clicks and whirs. The Nexos slammed against the other side, the impact making the door shudder but hold. "It knows we're in here," Vexel chittered, his mandibles quivering with stress. "It won't leave until it gets what it wants." "At least we're safe for now," Noah said, trying to catch his breath. "These doors are designed to contain hazardous specimens. It can't get in." "Not through the door," Grok rumbled ominously, pointing one stone appendage toward the ceiling, "but perhaps through there." They all looked up to see the ventilation grate large enough for the Nexos to squeeze through if it was determined enough. And judging by the scratching sounds now coming from within the ventilation system, it was very determined indeed. "We need to block that," Noah said, looking around the lab for something they could use. The xenobotany lab was filled with exotic plants from across the galaxy, many in sealed containment units. Specialized equipment lined the walls, and several workstations were scattered throughout the room. At the far end was a sealed door leading to the high-security section where the most dangerous plant specimens were kept. Grok moved a heavy storage cabinet beneath the vent, then climbed on top of it, his rocky form easily reaching the ceiling. With a single powerful movement, he punched through the ventilation grate and up into the duct, blocking it with his arm. A screech of pain echoed from above as the Nexos encountered the unyielding stone of Grok's limb. "It is trying to bite through," Grok reported calmly, though Noah could see cracks forming in the Buvian stone exterior. "It cannot penetrate my exterior easily, but I cannot maintain this position indefinitely. We need a more permanent solution," Noah said, mind racing. "Or a way to neutralize the Nexos completely. Kill it." Alara's skin pulsed with shock patterns. "That's a violation of the Galactic Preservation Accord. The Nexos is a protected species despite its predatory nature." "It's killed at least 3 people that we know of," Xyrx countered, inspecting a cut on his arm where the Nexos' claw had caught him. "I think survival takes precedence over preservation in this case." Noah moved to one of the lab's computer terminals. "Maybe we don't need to kill it. If we could sedate it somehow." He accessed the lab's inventory system, searching for anything that might help them. "Look at this. They have samples of soporific pollen from the sleep lilies of Morpheus Roman 4. Those are powerful enough to knock out creatures 5 times our size." "But how do we deploy it?" Vexel asked, moving to peer at the screen. "The pollen needs to be inhaled to be effective," Noah thought quickly. "The ventilation system. If we can release the pollen into the ducts, the Nexos will breathe it in. We might be able to knock it out long enough for actual security to find and recapture it. The pollen would spread throughout this entire section of the station," Alara warned. "Anyone in the vicinity would be affected, including us," Xyrx added. "We'd be unconscious and vulnerable if the plan fails. We can seal this room's vents after releasing the pollen," Noah suggested, and we're already wearing emergency filter masks. He pointed to the standard equipment attached to their emergency packs. Grok grunted in pain as the Nexos renewed its assault on his blocking arm. Whatever we decide, we must act quickly. Noah moved to the high-security door at the back of the lab. The sleep lily samples would be in containment back here. We need the access code. I know it, Alara said, stepping forward. I assist Professor Bendix with the dangerous specimens. She typed a complex sequence into the keypad, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. The high-security room was noticeably colder, filled with sealed containment units housing various plant specimens that glowed, moved, or otherwise demonstrated properties too dangerous for open display. Alara moved confidently to a blue-tinted container in the corner. Sleep lily pollen, she confirmed, checking the label. But it's in a sealed containment field. We need a way to disperse it into the ventilation system. Noah examined the container. If we can connect this to the auxiliary ventilation controls, we might be able to create a forced dispersal. A loud crack came from the main room, followed by Grok's pained rumble. The Nexos is persistent. My arm is beginning to fracture. Vexil, Noah called, you know the maintenance systems. Can you override the ventilation controls from here? The arachnoid moved to the environmental control panel on the wall. Possible, but it would require administrative access. Use my credentials, Alara said, her skin pulsing with determination as she recited a complex sequence of numbers and symbols. As Professor Bendix's assistant, I have limited admin access. While Vexil worked on the panel, Noah and Xyrx carefully removed the sleep lily containment unit and positioned it near the ventilation output vent in the high-security room. Ready? Noah asked, looking around at his unlikely companions. They all nodded, putting on their emergency filter masks. Even Grok, still blocking the ceiling vent with his increasingly damaged arm, managed to secure a specially designed mask over his mineral-based respiratory openings. Initiating ventilation override, Vexil announced, his multiple limbs working efficiently across the control panel. Sealing all vents to this room except the output channel, reversing airflow in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Noah activated the containment unit's release mechanism as Vexil hit the final command. The unit hissed open, and the iridescent blue pollen was immediately sucked into the ventilation duct, dispersing rapidly through the system. Return to the main room, Alara directed. We need to help Grok. They hurried back to find the Buvian still stoically blocking the vent, though large cracks now spread across his stone arm and shoulder. It's done, Noah told him. You can withdraw. The pollen should reach the Nexos within seconds. Grok carefully pulled his arm back, revealing the mangled ventilation duct and, just visible in the darkness beyond, the glinting eyes of the Nexos. The creature hissed, preparing to lunge down through the opening when the first particles of blue pollen reached it. The effect was almost immediate. The Nexos' movements became sluggish, its aggressive hissing fading to a low rumble. They watched as the predator struggled to maintain its position in the vent, its 6 limbs slowly losing their grip as the powerful sedative took effect. With a final weak growl, the Nexos slumped in the ventilation duct, its body partially visible through the damaged grate, completely unconscious. It worked, Xyrx breathed, relief evident even through his translator. We should contact security now, Alara said, her skin pulsing with calmer patterns. They can recapture it safely while it's sedated. Noah moved to the lab's communication panel but found it unresponsive. Communications are still down, he said with a frown. Someone must have sabotaged more than just the containment systems. Who would do such a thing? Vexil wondered, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. And why? That's what I can't figure out, Noah admitted. Why release a deadly predator in a school full of students? It doesn't make sense unless... Unless what? Xyrx prompted when Noah fell silent. Unless someone wanted to create a diversion, Noah realized. The Nexos wasn't the target, it was a distraction. But from what? The lab's door suddenly slid open, causing them all to spin around in alarm. Professor Laxam stood in the doorway, flanked by security personnel in full armor. Impressive work, the professor said, his tentacles rippling in what Noah recognized as the equivalent of a smile. Most impressive indeed. You five are the only students who didn't follow the falsified evacuation orders. You knew the orders were fake, Alara asked, her skin flashing with indignation. Of course, Professor Laxam replied, because I was monitoring who issued them. We've had a suspected information breach for months, someone selling Academy research to outside interests. When the Nexos containment was compromised, I saw an opportunity to flush out the culprit. You used students as bait. Xyrx's voice rose in outrage. No, Professor Laxam corrected. I issued correct evacuation protocols through official channels. Someone else, our spy, issued countermanding orders directing students toward danger. Only those with override privileges could do so. Did you catch them? Noah asked. Indeed, we did. Professor Itril was not killed by the Nexos as rumors suggested. He was caught attempting to access restricted research while everyone was distracted by the escape. When confronted, he admitted to releasing the predator. But why? Grok rumbled, cradling his damaged arm. Financial gain, primarily, Professor Laxam said with a dismissive wave of his tentacles. The Hegemony Consortium pays well for advanced xenobiology research. Now let's get you all to medical. Especially you, Grok, those fractures look significant. As security personnel moved in to secure the sedated Nexos, Noah felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. The adrenaline that had kept him going was rapidly fading. The next few hours passed in a blur of medical examinations, debriefings, and concerned messages from friends who had followed the correct evacuation protocols. Grok's injuries required specialized mineral grafting, but the prognosis was good. Xyrx's cut was treated with regenerative gel. Alara, Vexel, and Noah had escaped with minor bruises and scratches. When Noah finally returned to his dormitory that night, he found himself unable to sleep despite his exhaustion. Every sound made him tense, expecting to see the Nexos clinging to the ceiling. A soft knock at his door startled him. When he opened it, he found Professor Krell, the xenobiology instructor, standing in the corridor. "May I come in, Noah?" the professor asked, his insectoid form somehow managing to convey concern. "Of course, Professor," Noah stepped aside. Professor Krell moved to the center of the room, his compound eyes reflecting the dim light. "I wanted to personally thank you for your quick thinking today. Your actions saved many lives." Noah shrugged uncomfortably. "I just did what seemed logical. The evacuation order didn't make sense." "Most students didn't question it," Professor Krell noted, "even those from species known for their analytical abilities. Yet you, a human, supposedly one of the less advanced species in the galactic community, saw through the deception immediately." "I wouldn't say humans are less advanced," Noah protested mildly. "No, indeed not," Professor Krell agreed. "Different, certainly. Your species lacks the technological history of many galactic civilizations, but you possess unique perspectives. It's why the exchange program was established." The professor hesitated, then continued. "There is another matter. The Nexos is still sedated in the high-security containment area. We've been monitoring its brain patterns, and they're unusual." "Unusual how?" Noah asked, suddenly alert. It appears the Nexos was not hunting randomly. "Its neural patterns suggest targeted pursuit behavior." "You mean it was specifically hunting certain students?" Noah felt a chill run down his spine. "Not students," Professor Krell corrected. "Just one student, you, Noah Grant." Noah stared at the professor in disbelief. "Me? Why would it target me specifically?" "That's what we've been trying to determine. Professor Itril has been uncooperative in questioning, but we have a theory." Professor Krell moved closer, lowering his voice. "Nexos predators have specialized scent glands that mark their territory and their possessions. What does that have to do with me?" Nexos' young imprint on the first creature they interact with after hatching. "The specimen that escaped was not fully mature, despite its size. We believe it may have somehow imprinted on you or something associated with you." Noah thought back frantically. "I've never even been in the containment area where they kept it." "No, but 3 days ago, you submitted your xenobiology project on apex predator brain development. Your sample case was temporarily stored in the same lab where the Nexos was being kept. Realization dawned on Noah. The old clothing I used to line the case, it smelled like me. The Nexos could have imprinted on that scent. Precisely, Professor Krell confirmed, which brings me to the reason for my visit. The Nexos has been increasingly agitated in containment. Its vital signs indicate severe stress which could prove fatal. We've tried various calming techniques, but nothing works. What does this have to do with me? Noah asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. We would like you to visit the containment area, Professor Krell said. Under strictly controlled conditions, of course. Your presence might calm the creature enough for us to properly assess its condition. Noah stared at the professor. You want me to visit the predator that was hunting me through the station just hours ago? It wasn't hunting you to kill you, Professor Krell clarified. It was hunting you to be with you. Nexos young seek the comfort and protection of their parent or imprint figure. It's a fundamental biological drive. The realization was both bizarre and somewhat touching. So it wasn't trying to eat me, but to, what? Cuddle, in essence, yes. Nexos young sleep beside their parental figures for protection until they're fully mature. It's a vulnerable stage in their development. Noah ran a hand through his hair, trying to process this information. And if I don't go, what happens to it? It will likely die from stress, Professor Krell said bluntly. Which would be a significant loss to xenobiological research, not to mention a violation of the Preservation Accord, but I understand if you refuse. The experience was traumatic. Noah thought about it. The idea of being near the Nexos again was terrifying, but if what Professor Krell said was true, the creature wasn't actually trying to harm him, and letting it die from stress when he could prevent it seemed cruel. I'll do it, he decided. But I want Xyrx, Alara, Grok, and Vexel with me. They earned the right to see this through. Professor Krell's mandibles clicked in what Noah recognized as approval. A wise request. Their presence will provide additional security and documentation. Shall we say tomorrow morning at 0900 hours? Noah nodded, still not entirely sure he wasn't making a huge mistake. The next morning, the small group assembled outside the high-security containment area. Grok's arm was encased in a mineral regeneration sleeve, but otherwise they had all recovered well from their ordeal. I still think this is crazy, Xyrx muttered as they waited for Professor Krell to complete the security protocols. That thing tried to kill us yesterday. Actually, it was only interested in Noah, Alara pointed out, her skin pulsing with curiosity patterns. We were just obstacles. That doesn't make me feel better about being in the same room with it again, Vexel chittered nervously. Professor Krell approached them, accompanied by Professor Laxam and 2 security officers in full protective gear. We're ready to proceed. The Nexos has been given a mild sedative enough to keep it calm, but not enough to significantly alter its behavior. There's a barrier field that can be activated instantly if there's any sign of aggression. Noah took a deep breath. Let's do this. They entered the containment area, a large circular room with transparent walls that allowed observation from all sides. In the center, the Nexos lay curled in what looked like a nest of specialized bedding material. Its 6 limbs were tucked close to its body, and its elongated head rested on its front claws. It looked much less threatening than it had in the ventilation duct. Approach slowly, Professor Krell instructed Noah. Stop at the marker on the floor 5 meters from the specimen. Noah walked carefully to the indicated spot, hyper-aware of every movement the predator made. As he approached, the Nexos raised its head, its multiple eyes focusing instantly on him. A low, rumbling sound emanated from its throat. Is that purring? Xyrx asked incredulously from behind the safety barrier. A similar vocalization, Professor Krell confirmed. It indicates recognition and contentment. The Nexos rose to its full height, nearly 2 meters tall on its hind limbs, and took a step toward Noah, who fought the instinct to retreat. Hold your position, Professor Laxam instructed tensely. The barrier field is ready if needed. The predator moved closer, its gait surprisingly graceful for such a fearsome creature. When it reached Noah, it lowered its head and, to everyone's astonishment, gently pressed its forehead against Noah's chest. Remarkable, Professor Krell murmured, recording the interaction. Classic imprinting behavior, it recognizes you as its parental figure. Noah stood frozen, afraid any movement might trigger aggression. The Nexos continued to make the purring sound, rubbing its head against him like an oversized, deadly cat. What do I do? Noah whispered. If you're comfortable, try placing your hand on its head crest, Professor Krell suggested. That's a calming spot for Nexos young. With tremendous trepidation, Noah slowly raised his hand and placed it on the bony crest that ran along the top of the predator's head. The creature's purring intensified, and it pressed more firmly against him. This is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, Xyrx commented from behind the barrier. A Nexos acting like a pet. Not a pet, Professor Krell corrected. A child seeking parental comfort, there's a significant difference. After several minutes of this strange interaction, Professor Laxam spoke up. Noah, we'd like to try something. The Nexos has refused to sleep since being recaptured, which is causing dangerous strain on its system. Would you be willing to sit with it in its rest area? Noah looked at the nest like bedding where the creature had been lying. You want me to? Lie down with it. Just sit beside it, Professor Laxam clarified. We believe your presence might allow it to finally rest. Noah looked at his friends, who offered various gestures of encouragement, even Vexel, who still seemed the most nervous of the group. All right, he agreed, but keep that barrier field ready. He carefully moved toward the bedding area, the Nexos following close beside him like an oversized, deadly shadow. Noah sat down on the edge of the nest, and the predator immediately curled around him, its body forming a protective semicircle. Now what? Noah asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Just sit quietly, Professor Krell advised. Let it become accustomed to your presence in its rest area. Noah remained still as the Nexos adjusted its position, eventually laying its head across his lap like a dog seeking attention. The absurdity of the situation wasn't lost on him. Less than 24 hours ago, this creature had been hunting him through the Academy Station, and now it was treating him like a beloved parent. After about 20 minutes, the Nexos' breathing slowed and its multiple eyes closed. The purring sound continued, but softer, more rhythmic. It's falling asleep, Professor Krell noted with obvious excitement. This is unprecedented documentation of Nexos' bonding behavior. Noah remained motionless, afraid to disturb the now sleeping predator. Despite his lingering fear, he found himself fascinated by the creature. Up close, its adaptive skin showed subtle patterns and textures that weren't visible from a distance. Its feared claws, now relaxed, revealed intricate joint structures that allowed for both precision and power. How long do I need to stay here? Noah whispered. Just a while longer, Professor Krell replied quietly. Once it enters deep sleep, we can safely remove you. Another 30 minutes passed before Professor Krell determined the Nexos had entered a deep sleep cycle. With extreme care, security personnel helped Noah extract himself from beneath the creature's head without waking it. Once safely behind the barrier, Noah let out a long breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. That was the most terrifying and amazing thing I've ever done. You've made a significant contribution to xenobiology today, Professor Krell told him, his compound eyes gleaming with academic excitement. And you've quite possibly saved this specimen's life. What happens to it now? Alara asked, her skin pulsing with concern patterns. We'll need to carefully manage its developmental period, Professor Laxam explained. Normally, Nexos young remain with their parental figures for approximately 2 Earth years before independence. Noah's eyes widened. You're not suggesting I become its permanent caretaker? No, Professor Krell assured him. Though we would request periodic visits to maintain its emotional stability, we'll develop a protocol to gradually reduce its dependency on your presence. As they left the containment area, Noah felt strangely conflicted. The Nexos was undeniably dangerous. It had killed security personnel and threatened his friends. Yet seeing it peacefully asleep, vulnerable and dependent, had changed his perception. In the days that followed, news of the incident spread throughout the academy. Noah and his friends became minor celebrities among the student body. The story evolved with each retelling the alien students who had feared the deadly predator, only to discover it preferred the company of a human. Noah continued his visits to the Nexos containment area, each time observing new behaviors and helping the researchers understand its development. Gradually, the visits became less necessary as the creature matured and formed secondary bonds with its caretakers. 6 months later, Noah sat in the observation area, watching as the now adolescent Nexos moved through training exercises designed to prepare it for eventual return to its native habitat. It had grown nearly a meter in length and shown remarkable intelligence during its rehabilitation. "It still looks for you when it first wakes up," Professor Krell noted, joining Noah at the observation window, "but the dependency is decreasing appropriately." "That's good," Noah said, watching the powerful creature navigate a complex obstacle course with ease. "It needs to survive in the wild, not rely on me. Nevertheless, you've formed a unique bond," Professor Krell observed, "the first documented case of human Nexos imprinting. Your xenobiology project has expanded into a doctoral-level study." Noah smiled. "Not exactly what I had in mind when I submitted that original assignment. The best scientific discoveries rarely are," Professor Krell replied philosophically. "Your experience has changed how we understand Nexos' behavior, and perhaps more importantly, how we understand interspecies connections." Xyrx, Ilera, Grok, and Vexil joined them at the window, a now familiar gathering that had become routine over the months. Their initial fear had transformed into scientific curiosity, and in time, a strange sort of affection for the predator that had brought them together. "The predator release incident changed all our lives," Ilera observed, her skin pulsing with thoughtful patterns. "Not just academically, but personally." Grok rumbled in agreement, his arm fully healed and stronger than before. "It taught us that fear can blind us to understanding." "And that appearances can be deceiving," Vexil added, his mandibles clicking softly. "What seems most dangerous may simply be misunderstood." Noah watched as the Nexos completed its training routine and looked toward the observation window, its multiple eyes focusing unerringly on him despite the distance. It raised one clawed limb in what the research team had come to recognize as a greeting gesture. Noah raised his hand in return, still marveling at the unlikely connection he had formed with the galaxy's most feared predator, a creature that had hunted him through the academy, only to sleep beside him in the end. In the vast diversity of the galaxy, with its countless species and civilizations, perhaps the most valuable lesson was that connection could form in the most unexpected places, transcending biological differences and even natural instincts. As the Nexos turned back to its trainers, Noah knew their paths would eventually diverge. The predator would return to its native world, and he would continue his studies. But their brief intersection had changed the understanding of both species forever, proving that in the great cosmic web of life, even the most feared predator might seek not to devour, but simply to belong.